Welcome to The Disruption Is Now. Join us on this enlightening journey as we explore how AI is impacting our jobs, careers, lives, and the human experience. Each episode, host Greg Matusky will converse with visionaries and innovators at the forefront of AI, diving into its challenges, opportunities, and impact. So buckle up as we venture into the heart of disruption, and together, let's unfold the future.
Hey, it's Greg again. I'm back. Another segment of The Disruption Is Now, here from the floor of HumanX, one of the most consequential trade shows and conferences in AI. And I got the opportunity to meet Lisa Yu during lunch. And she's a venture capitalist, a partner in 99 VC out of the West Coast. She has a very storied past with her ability to find unique talents. And I guess you're here today looking at what's emerging and what's new. Am I right?
Yes, of course. I mean, being in Las Vegas, kind of a little bit of old stomping grounds. I come from a Microsoft background, but I've also shipped hardware for 6 years. So CES, very familiar. And now, of course, HumanX is taking over Vegas this week.
Tell me a little bit about your fund. It's early stage, pre-seed. Tell me what you're looking for and the things that you're seeing out in the market.
Yeah, well, I'm based in San Francisco, so it's a hotbed of AI, robotics, and emerging technology. And it's so exciting because you have, obviously, South Bay, which is the silicon chip capital of the world, and, NVIDIA and all of the, major tech developments are happening just right in my backyard. And then, you have all the infrastructure companies, and on top of that, you have all of the application layer. And so it's really exciting to see kind of the combination of hardware and software. And in this new AI era, every vertical is being leveled up because of AI.
And so one of the things I'm always interested in pre-seed startup investment is, what do you really look for? There's no track record, there's no sales. So what piques your interest?
Yeah, so I'm an AI and data fund, so 99 VC. We're a pre-seed and seed fund. We invest in early stage startups. We're AI specific, but industry agnostic. But big data is really the heart and soul of the types of companies that we invest in. And so, for me, it's really looking for those founders that really understand that it has to go beyond just building hardware or software. There needs to be this ability to connect the dots on where the market is moving. And so I'm very much founder first, founder centric. I look for, okay, what is their past? How did they get educated? Okay, maybe even if they dropped out of school, what did they build in the past? So our database, we have a rich data set of over 1 billion data points where we're tracking startups and founders from incorporation to exit. And so we're able to do deep research on not just the tech that they're building, but the team behind it. And it's the combination of the two that is the winning formula.
Well, that's really interesting to me, because I always try to figure out where the puck is moving in the world of AI. And I got to tell you, I've missed the target a number of times. Just the first wave for all these companies that were basically skinning AI and thought they would bring something unique to the party, and then AI's capabilities easily caught up with them. So where in AI do you think the future, where will we be in a year from today if I was talking to you?
Well, I will say, don't feel like you've missed out, right? Because the first wave sometimes is experimental, and a lot of times it's not really the first mover that wins the market. Sometimes it's like the second mover or the third or the future movers that have learned the mistakes from the past. And so a lot of early VCs have invested in these ChatGPT wrappers, these kind of glorified AI valuations that we saw, several years ago. And now that kind of wave is over. What we're seeing now is more sophisticated AI technology. There are, of course, better models that are out there. You can build faster. You can build with less capital. So having capital efficient startups coming out of not just Silicon Valley, but from all around the world is very exciting. It's like, now you can build billion-dollar businesses with a team of a handful of people, and that has never been done before.
And it's interesting, I was at Davos on the AI track this year.
I was at Davos too.
Yes, we should have met up there.
Next year, we'll definitely have to do this again.
And what was interesting was it was a week before DeepSeek came out.
Oh, yes.
And so there was one conversation going on. By the time I got back to my office on Tuesday of the next week, it was as if it never happened because all the
Yeah.
talk was on small models and what you had just said
Yeah.
about the ability to reduce cost in the training development of foundational models and how they'll become more available to
Yeah.
entrepreneurs and developers.
Yeah. I mean, definitely the cost of foundation models have gone down. And so the ability to now build on top of that becomes really exciting. I think there's going to become almost a commoditization of those large language models and foundational models. And then it's the specialized models that will be where the value stack really sits. Because if something is trained on a skill set that's, not trained on the internet, but maybe trained on some PhD level research that isn't publicly published yet, then you have some proprietary data and information, and that could give that competitive advantage. So I think there's been a lot of talk that this is the year of AI agents. Of course, agentic AI is on the rise, physical AI is on the rise, and those are the two areas that I focus on.
And you have a very wide scope. When you talk about AI, right, you're also looking at robotics, you're looking at drone, you're looking at autonomous vehicles. And I think that's one thing that's kind of missed at HumanX this year is that most of the companies that are here are really talking about enterprise applications with regard to data and management and whether it's on site or off site or your own foundational model. Talk a little bit about that, how it's impacting all these different industries.
Yeah, well, I think everything's happening in parallel. Obviously, bringing AI to the enterprise is a huge first step because every company will experience disruption, whether they like it or not. And those companies that can adopt to the AI will be the ones that win in the future and continue on. And those that don't implement AI into their systems, into their workflows, will significantly fall behind. Now, we live in a physical world. So once all of the businesses and the day-to-day task operations and automations and digital robots are kind of now taking over our day-to-day workflow, then if anyone that attended CES saw Jason Huang talked about, okay, there's agentic AI and then there's physical AI, which is next. And it's because once you have this proliferation and saturation of AI agents that are now your coworkers at your jobs, they're now basically running your businesses for you. We still live in a digital world. We still need to move about. We still need to go from point A to point B. So then when you start to think about long tail AI implementation into transportation, into mobility, into logistics, so those are all kind of things that are now also being created. Everything is happening in parallel and everything is happening very quickly.
To meet the needs of the physical world.
Yes.
And just not the needs of the enterprise's data management.
Both are important, but I think that the greater population will start to experience more physical AI implementations, in the future.
Let me ask you, because I've often wanted to ask this of somebody who has a Microsoft background, and I have to say you look much younger than you really are, so you've been around. How much has it shocked you what we've seen since ChatGPT was introduced in November of 2022?
Yeah. So, obviously the models have just exponentially gotten better. So if you actually look at, there's this really funny image of, in 2018, there's an image of a blueberry muffin or a chihuahua.
Right.
And so humans and the computer vision was not able to identify which was which. If you really zoomed into the face of 3 dots, it's like, is that a muffin or is that a dog's face? And then fast forward, every year it's incrementally gotten better. So in 2022, now you can generate with a prompt, a chihuahua eating a muffin. And then now you have video models. Now you can literally generate a chihuahua running and catching a muffin. So it's the incremental step change that has been happening every year. Every 6 months, there's a new version of a model. Now it seems like every month, every other week, there's a new model that's coming out, from all around the world. So it's really exciting. I think that the future of AI is very multimodal, right? I think initially right now, you're chatting with a chat box. It feels very textual. It feels almost like DOS prompt style.
Right,
what
right,
we need
absolutely.
is the GUI of AI.
I'm
right?
probably the only one that knows what DOS prompt. So
I definitely have some experience.
you
with
were
DOS.
well past that. I remember the
Yeah.
greater than
Yep.
colon. Yeah.
Yep. Everything, coding in HTML, just character by character. I've experienced that, building early websites in my youth. But now you can now talk to a computer and tell it what you want, and it can just generate a website. That is insane. Like
It's
we
insane.
would not have dreamed of that
Right.
20 years ago, and here we are. So I think everyone has just been shocked and surprised on a daily basis, and I think that's what's so exciting about this industry, because just when you think we've gone far enough, it kind of takes your breath away once again.
Well, let me ask you a little bit of a difficult question,
Okay,
because
yeah.
I wouldn't ask you to divulge any of your due diligence of the companies you're looking at, but what would excite you most that would walk through the door tomorrow at 99 VC?
Ooh,
What kind of company?
that's a great one.
What's not there?
What's not there? Well, there's something that I personally would love that's not quite there yet, but there's signals of it, of course. Robotics, home robotics. My dream is to have a robot butler chef that can cook my meals, do my laundry. Right now, they really need to refine the dexterity. Obviously, lots of R&D is being spent on making sure like the grip is right, because there's some, very complicated physical tasks that needs to be done, right? You can maybe easily have a bot move boxes, do very simple tasks, but being able to polish a certain wine glass a certain way to make sure the spots are gone, to put it perfectly on a shelf, that still needs work. And so I think I'm excited because you're seeing, of course, these developments are accelerating. I think selfishly, just having help around the house would be amazing. I would be like, I want to buy it like today. If I saw it walk around and do sophisticated tasks, for the home, I would want to take it home.
Well, Lisa, it was a great conversation.
Yeah.
I want to thank you.
Thank you so
Fortuitous.
much.
We met at lunch, and I was really intrigued by your background and what you're looking for. And we're going to be back with a couple more episodes from today, and so you want to tune back in. Hey, it's Greg. I'm back again with another episode of The Disruption Is Now from the floor of HumanX. Excited to be here because I have with me one of America's greatest entrepreneurs who had founded and sold LinkShare and now has a brand new company called Collective Eye. And I think this is a brilliant idea. So why don't you help me, Stephen Messer, who's the CEO and founder of Collective Eye. Why don't you help me walk through what exactly Collective Eye is?
Well, thank you for having me here. First of all, I'm so excited to be here. This is such an exciting event to be at, but also to be here with you is just, I feel blessed. So thank you for having me.
Well, geez, I'm blushing.
Well, no one can see it because the lights aren't good enough here.
I know,
but thank you for that.
We're doing all we can.
So I'll give a little background. Collective Eye is short for collective intelligence. And the reason why it's that is because we recognize that these neural nets like ChatGPT and Claude and all these things have done pretty amazing things, but they've done it in relatively simplistic fields: language, images, audio,
Absolutely.
video. Super powerful. And it's not that you can't do a lot with it, but how do you apply it and do something practical? What we did is we looked and said, we're going to build an economic foundation model. What is that? Everyone's probably thinking to themselves, what the heck is that? I've never heard of this thing.
Explain it for me.
So imagine an AI that studies how the world is doing business every day, so it can help you tell you what's actually going to happen in your business, what's going to happen in your personal, as a sales professional, as a logistics person. What's going to happen? Can I make the world more predictable?
Especially in the chaotic times that we're in.
Let me tell you something. As crazy as it's been over the last few weeks, I have a feeling it's going to get crazier. And can you imagine every Friday organizations are trying to sit down and figure out what does this mean for their business? And the way they're doing it is based on their personal experience. So we said, that's crazy. Why not learn from everybody in a way that's safe and secure, but that gives you insights? And by the way, we do it all the time, right? You use Google Maps or Waze.
Ways and both, actually.
Right? Who doesn't love learning from all the drivers ahead of you so you can
Absolutely.
avoid traffic?
Absolutely.
What if you could learn about what's going to happen with your customers, what's going to happen with your prospects? Because you're learning from other people who are working with them, but no one knows that you're talking to them. No one knows what you're saying or what you're doing, but you're getting insights on what other people are doing so you can figure out.
So how much of the universe of businesses are you getting data from right now?
So this is the challenge with neural nets. You have to have real scale.
Right.
Scale, right? If you don't have scale, you can't do anything.
Absolutely.
We started the business 10 years ago. Today, we track over 5% of the globe's economy.
That's mind-blowing. So 5% of the world's economy, somehow in your users, they can touch 5% of the economy and feed back data into the model.
Yeah, so what we started was we said, look, salespeople are sensors. they're talking to customers before it becomes revenue. If you could follow what they were doing every single day, and if you could look at the same buyers across multiple people, you'd start to see when a buyer starts pulling back, slowing down, or how do they behave when they're buying? Who's involved? When do they do things? And what that means is if you start observing them every single day, you start to see something's changing for better or for worse. If we can then provide that for other insights inside the business, the world becomes a little bit more predictable. Now, it has not been predictable.
No.
So the other thing is it has to be live. Things change every day. What does it mean for you?
And
That's what we do.
And that gives you the flexibility and the resilience to make immediate decisions.
Yeah. Right. Think about your Google Maps experience. It's not just that it gave you good directions. It's not just that it gave you an accurate arrival, but it's alive. So if all of a sudden ahead of you 10 miles, an accident occurs, it's an unknown event. No one can predict it. It's not that the Google Maps estimate was wrong. It didn't know it was going to happen. But as soon as it does, it's live. And it routes you around it. So, yeah, maybe you're going to be a little late, but you're not going to be stuck for an hour in traffic.
So this is how you really differentiate from all the different sales management tools, the Salesforces, the HubSpots, and of the like.
Well, we wouldn't even think of ourselves as a sales tool. We provide an application called Collective Eye on top of us. It's one of 3 applications we do because we're making a trade. You give me your data and I'll give you critical insights, but I'll keep your data safe and secure. And that feeds the model to learn about the economy. Now you can actually use our API to go then take insights and build it into other things.
So at what level you have the sales information coming into the model?
Yeah.
And then what level are you doing the change management?
Yeah, so in our 3 applications, they're used differently. So the one application is Collective Eye. That's for sales professionals. And that's for organizations to understand demand and the revenue that's going to come from it so they can make better decisions. The second application we have is free. So your whole audience here, if they go to intelligence.com, can sign up for free to learn about a professional network that they can trust. I'm not saying LinkedIn's bad. I love it.
Explain this to me.
So you and I both are on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
How many connections do you have?
Over 5,000, 50,000.
That's a social network,
10,000,
right? Do you know those connections?
No.
If someone reaches out to you and says, I see you're connected to this person, can you make an introduction?
No, it means nothing to me.
Do you think anyone's looking at those introductions saying, I should come to you because you have access to these people?
No.
No. So this is a problem. A social network is about takers trying to say, I am important. But in life, your best opportunities probably came when someone said, I thought about you, and I told this person to reach out to you.
Absolutely.
So that's what this does. What it does is says, look, when you join, you have to let our AI have access to your connected apps, email, phone, video conference. And what we do is we build an accurate graph of not just who you actually know, but how well you know them, and it's all authenticated. So this means I can promote my network out there to the world and say, if you need to get to one of these people, not only do you know I know them for a fact, but you know how well I know them, so you can decide if you want to bring me that opportunity for them.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. What's the third?
The third one is something called Intelligent Write Back. Today, it's kind of another sales tool. It's how we started, which was a lot of companies have bought a system of record, Salesforce, Dynamics, HubSpot, et cetera. And those system of records have nothing in it. There are no records. Salespeople don't like to put things in. Client success people don't like to put things in. That technology automates all that so we can capture the data, put it back in, and of course, give other insights around it.
So let's talk real world here. What's going on in the news today? You've got tariffs. That's going to disrupt entire supply chains. And corporations, enterprises are going to have to make decisions where they're going to find vendors, suppliers all across the world other than the markets that are being tariffed right now. So how would this work in that situation?
Well, look, imagine you're a CEO. Imagine you're a CFO. Imagine you're the head of sales. And everyone's asking you from your board, what's going to happen with our business? Should we pull back? Should we change the makeup of our products? Should we on and on and on? And what are your answers?
Say, well, our pipeline's robust. That's my answer.
Well,
XYZ.
why are you saying that? You're probably saying that because you don't want to lose people. You don't want to lose budget.
Well, I'm saying that because I'm working with the sales team, and anecdotally, I get their data, but anecdotally, I'm trying to figure out, will the market be impacted? Right now, the market's down, the Dow's down 2,500 points. I have a lot of financial services clients. Are you hearing anything, or is there anything that's coming to you through the grapevine? Right? It's all anecdotal.
But you're polling your people, And what are
Right.
they thinking about? If I tell you my pipe's weak,
Making me happy.
well, making you happy, but if I also tell you my pipeline's weak, are you keeping me?
That's what I'm saying. They want to make me feel
Yes.
good so that, their job's secure.
And what do you need? You
I
need
need-
to know what's really happening.
Exactly. I'm right on mark with you.
So today, the whole revenue side of a business is qualitatively being measured based on a small sample. And just so you know, in sales, the number one saying is buyers lie. So everyone's basing all this on opinions, knowing that the number one saying is buyers lie. But everyone's trying to figure out how to keep their job. What they need to know is what's happening, not just with them, but what's happening globally. If I can find out that all this group of customers are slowing down their purchases, I can react quickly to it. Maybe I start quickly selling my inventories so that I'm not stuck holding warehousing stuff. Maybe I start figuring out which sectors are not going to be impacted or which sectors benefit. Because you're going to figure out what benefits, but probably after everybody else figured it out.
So tell me, what size enterprises are you working with? Do you have to be 100,000 people, 200,000 people?
It's a great question. When we started the business, it had to be a Fortune 2000. Why? We needed huge data.
Yeah.
You go to one big company, they have 10,000 people. You're getting data on every piece of business they're working on. It mapped the roads. Today, we're 10 years later. You can be anyone. You could have 2 people working with you, or you could have thousands. It doesn't make a difference anymore.
Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you the AI overlay to all this. Tell me a little bit about that and how you're working it into the offering.
Well, it is the core of the offering. Economic foundation model is everything about our business. We built those 3 applications as a way to feed that model more data, and in exchange, we give great insights. Now, your audience probably doesn't know, most of our products is free. You get Google Maps. It doesn't cost you anything because you're willing to contribute data in exchange for getting these great insights. That's our business model. On top of that, we make money on other ways. You want other kinds of insights? Some insights you have to pay for.
Now, let me ask you, do you work with a lot of governments? I mean, this would be critical to the economic development of any government.
Yeah, if you look at our audience, even on our advisory board, it is people like Kareem Lakhani, HBS professor, Dr. Nouriel Roubini, Dr. Doom, one of the world-famous economists. Roger Ferguson used to be co-chair of the Federal Reserve Bank.
Only Dr. Doom's right this week. Just for the
Dr.
record.
Doom is feeling pretty good right now. And if you haven't bought his book, you should absolutely buy his book because it is about exactly what's happening right now. And you can look at and you see Sandy Pentland and all these other great people that are associated with the company because for the first time, we're actually seeing what's true. Adam Smith's invisible hand is finally visible.
Now, are you working with the media to give them insights? Because I'm sure they would love to know this type of thing.
It's funny. We keep thinking about doing more and more where we can share what's actually happening day to day in the economy. We haven't done that yet. We're focused on growing our business and doing that. But I think, look, the world needs to know what's happening because volatility is never good.
Right. And we're never have been in more volatile situation than we are right now.
Well, don't say that because tomorrow could be worse.
Yeah, that's true.
I feel like we're on a path. We've ridden the elevator or the roller coaster.
Well, I
up.
think
It's
it'll slow
coming
down. I think it'll slow down once Canada becomes our 51st state. But we'll leave it. We'll leave it there, Stephen. It was a great conversation. I really appreciate your time, and we'll be back with a couple more episodes on the second day from HumanX. It's been an amazing day. I've met all kinds of people. And I've had the opportunity to learn about a lot of different companies. And I'm joined now with the CTO and co-founder of Cresta. That's Tim Shi. And he's been at this since 2017. He's a graduate of the Stanford AI Lab. Is that right?
Right.
And tell me about your journey in Cresta, because it's really hit a crescendo, I think, in the last year. So how did it all begin?
Yeah, so Cresta actually spun off from Stanford AI Lab when we were, the founders were like students in Sebastian Thrun's lab. And Sebastian was the founder of Google self-driving car. And I think back then, like 2017, AI is still in its very nascent age. Like deep learning was just taking off. And I think the transformer paper was just invented.
For some people that don't understand, they don't know what the transformer white paper was. Tell us quickly what that was.
Yeah, so transformer was a neural network architecture that was one of the first to scale like attention-based networks. And what that means is that over the many years, people tried different kind of architecture, train on lots of data. And what people found is that some architectures scale better than others. And as you feed in more and more data, especially internet scale data, people found like transformer is an architecture that scales really well with the large amount of data. And that's where we started with GPT-1
And that
2,
was really the
3,
seminal
4.
event, wasn't it? That gave us what we now know as ChatGPT and Meta and all the other great foundational languages. So did you start with the intention of being in call centers, or is that where you found the data that you needed to create a service or a product?
So in 2017, because deep learning was still early, the area that we found that could really work like at scale is where you have a lot of data, because at that time we don't have large language models yet, and we don't have like model already pre-trained on internet scale data. So what we found is that every company has call centers, and they have like a large amount of recording data that you can use to train deep learning models. And that's where we can actually see a difference between using these type of models versus like traditional machine learning models. And we view that is actually an area you can drive a lot of business impact as well, because like every company care about their customer experience.
So tell me, at that point, right, this is the conversational AI, right? This was just starting. And I think a lot of people don't know how important call centers were to the development of what we know as today's AI. So that was your intention. You started building it, right? It was you and how many people at that time?
At the time, just me, the founders, and maybe like few engineers. We started like very small and lean.
And you're working 7 days a week. You're just trying to thrash it out. Is that right?
Right. It's like, the early days, you got to be like all hands down building the product.
And so skip ahead now. That's where it started. And now tell us about the recent raise, where you are now, and what the productivity gains that are still there to achieve in call centers.
Yeah, I think call center, after ChatGPT, call center is definitely the number one area for applying like the transformer, like in the GPT-based architecture. Maybe in addition to like coding, but I think like call center is a really good area because it's like where you can drive a lot of business impact. Every company has customers. Customers talk to the business, right? So their customer experience, increasingly people think is a differentiating factor. And you can also drive additional, say, revenue through conversations if you can upsell more or help customers upgrade, through their packages. So that's where I think you can see businesses that either want to increase revenue or reduce cost. You can improve their ROI immediately through like the deploying AI in like real production environments.
And congratulations, you recently raised, what was the amount?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, we raised a Series D of 125 from various investors who help us with the expansion.
And let's talk a little bit about that, the AI overlay with humans in the call center. Tell me how Cresta manages those two elements, humans and AI, and what it allows the organization to provide in the way of an enhanced customer experience.
Yeah, totally. Right now, I receive a lot of AI sort of products that are in the markets are more like in the demo stage, where when you actually go into production, I think the model capability is still not there yet to get to an agent that can fully automate every conversation that customers have with the business.
And is that why is that because there's not enough training data? Is that because there's inconsistencies in an LLM? What is it?
It's a combination of different factors. I think first, a lot of the pre-training, what we see as today is like sort of running into a plateau. Like, as you see, like GPT 4.5 is not really a step function improvement over GPT 4. And a lot of the effort will go into post-training, which is like after you train the model, what do you do with the additional data? And those
is that a human input at that point?
Right, you will collect additional data, like for a specific domain, like say call center or or software engineering or design. Then you train the model additionally to improve its performance in that domain. But we're in a sense limited by the amount of data we have, right? Because I think call center has a lot of data by many domains. We don't have a lot of data that's available in a shared repository, so it's like hard to train a foundation model that could like leverage every data source. I think people are still like moving in that direction. But as is today, the model that people trained for different domains are still not like human level in the sense like you can replace humans. The second, I think, factor is actually related to the environment, because like for AI to work in an enterprise environment, you have to give it the right context, the right time. You have to integrate it into like dozens, even hundreds of systems. That's actually a very heavy lifting process for a lot of enterprise, because like every system is owned by say different team, and there's like different team dynamics or different like access controls that you have to get through. So it's a longer process to gain like what the information the AI needs to perform at the best level.
Okay, so with your recent raise, the proceeds go to what? What element is there? What productivity is there still to squeeze out of the call center, and where are you headed?
Yeah, I think we are investing very heavily in R&D. We build, in my opinion, like one of the best voice agents in the market, because in voice it's very hard. You have to achieve real-time interaction with like very low latency, and you have to be very natural sounding. So I think voice agents is what we are very good at, and we differentiate in the competitive market, and we're continue to heavily invest on that, right? So that make our product platform more differentiated. And the second thing is we're actually expanding internationally. So we're actually like a lot of the Series D investors are like strategic investors, like partners and investors who can help us expand internationally. So we're like looking to expand into Asia and Europe. So we're hiring like go-to-market resources there.
So how far away are we from fully automated call centers and customer service?
I think we are definitely on the right direction. As I mentioned before, like the model core capability, foundational capability is fundamentally by the data. I think call center has a lot of data. That's why I think it will be an area where AI can fully automate a lot of the interactions.
So do you think the foundational models have really hit a ceiling with regard to how much data they have and how well they can perform, that it has to be then tuned?
I think to some extent, yes. I think it will be a marathon to get to the next level. I think people are scaling compute, but we're bottlenecked by the amount of data we have. So first of all, like we're running out of internet scale data, and people are trying to collect, expert level private data, but that will take time, right? You have to gather, different data licenses from different sources. And if you look at the scaling law, if you have to like scale the next model, you have to scale the data correspondingly in order to achieve that level of performance. There are people who research labs try to use synthetic data, like AI generate data to train the model. But we haven't seen, I think besides some of the verifiable domains like software engineering and maybe math, we haven't seen like a very significant approach that could really make a difference in like synthetic data.
So with synthetic, is it that it's just what about it isn't as good as human generated?
Yes, so if you look at AlphaGo, for example, many years ago, people trained these reinforcement learning agents in synthetic simulated environments, right? Like you play Go against, for example, another computer program, and in many, many moves, it generates essentially data, and you know which move is good based on the outcome of the whole gameplay. We're seeing some of that success with like verifiable domains, like say software engineering. Like if you can say you have different ways to write the program and one of the program executes and it's correct, then you get some signal that this is actually good data, right? So this is actually a very valuable data for the AI to learn from. That's why there are a lot of companies try to like build these synthetic data for like these coding and math use cases, and we see a improvement over there. But in general, foundation model, I think we need like more data to be able to perform.
So you've been at this since 2017, and I ask this to everyone who's on the podcast. What has surprised you most about this era of AI?
That's a really good question. I would say that what's surprising is that the adoption of the AI is actually faster than I expected. If you look at SaaS, if you look at internet, like companies who migrate from say on-premise to cloud, it took like a decade. right? It's a whole like movement, and then the businesses that start SaaS companies grow from 0 to 100 in like say average of 7 years. But what we see AI is actually much faster. That some of the companies like coding agents that grow 0 to 100 in like less than 2 years. That's very impressive. And I think like there are a lot of enterprise customers actually who are, because of ChatGPT is so successful as a brand, and a lot of people feel that AI is real, and they want to push AI transformation in their companies like top down. So that's a lot of willingness and budget to actually adopt AI. I think the third thing is like internet actually make it easier because we already have the SaaS and AWS and Google Cloud infrastructure. So bringing AI to these environments is actually much easier because you already have the distribution, the build out over the last decade.
Well, Tim, I want to thank you for being with us.
Of
Congratulations on the great
you.
success and your recent capital raise. We will conclude our second day at HumanX, and it's been a great day here on the floor. Met a lot of interesting people, including Tim Shi. Well, we're back. This is our last day at HumanX, and again, it's been an unbelievable conference. For a first-year conference, it has been remarkably successful in both the quality of the firms and speakers as well as the participants. And I'm happy to have one of the speakers and participants here with me right now, João Graça. Did I say that right?
Yes.
And he's the CTO of Unbabel. And you're based in Lisbon, but you're here today as part of the AI track talking about what AI companies are doing to change the world. Tell me a little bit about Unbabel and what the AI play is. It's a language translation company, but give me the full rundown.
So Unbabel is solving the problem that people speak different languages, and they will continue to speak different languages. And so we work on translation, but on the essence, we're an AI company. So my background is my PhD in machine learning, in natural language processing. And basically, we were talking with friends who were renting apartments on Airbnb. And they were very frustrated because if it was someone from Spain, they could actually kind of understand. But if it was someone from Germany, they had no idea how to reply. And Google Translate was not reliable enough. And basically what me and Vasco and the other co-founders started thinking was, well, machine translation is not reliable enough, but it's actually a very good start. Can we just get some humans, like a crowd of humans, that can basically go there and correct the errors? And this was 11 years ago, so we kind of set this human in the loop.
Well before ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And
well before.
training foundational models.
We didn't have deep learning yet. So deep learning was something that didn't work. So the first translation systems that we built at Unbabel were statistical machine translation systems, which is like the first version of Google Translate. So we started with that. Basically, we started with the process of inviting people to the community. The other insight was there was very few professional translators for the volume that we wanted to do. They were expensive because they're actually very good. But I'm not a professional translator, and I did my PhD thesis in English. And so we thought, okay, if we're doing this kind of like very transactional translations, can we just get a bilingual, someone who speaks a language? And so the idea was, well, let's make a mobile app and let's invite Erasmus students. And like while they're in the subway, they can do some translations and get beer money. So that was kind of like the gig economy with AI 11 years ago. So then
perfectly fits. We were talking before this about Ericeira, where I vacationed last year. And it is such a digital nomadic community there. We're always looking to freelance, so I can see where your thoughts were.
Exactly. And actually it worked very well because what it allows us was to get a very large community of people that were available. And we could set up a notification system so we can make the human part very fast. Because if you think about the time that it takes to do a translation is basically the machine, which is nothing, and then it's the human. But the human is broken into two. It's like the time that they start to do the task and the time they actually do the translation. And the first one is much bigger. And so with this model, we found a vertical customer service that could be very effective because imagine that you have a company and you're selling to 20 different languages. You have to hire people that speak the languages to basically interact with your customers. But that becomes very expensive, and you might not have enough demand to have like a Polish speaker. And so what we realized,
and the latency too, to manage it.
And so basically what we did is we just integrated with all CRMs for customer service, like Zendesk, Salesforce, Freshdesk, and you could just edit Unbabel and say, my agent speaks English, or it speaks English and Portuguese. And every email that you got in a different language, it just went through Unbabel and got to you in English. You reply in English, and the customer gets it in Polish. And this was literally a magical experience for both sides. And because we had this community, the way we set it up, we could put a top 10 minutes SLA with a human because we could reach a community very fast. Those are small tasks, a good interface. So this was very disruptive. And basically that's how we start growing a lot on that market.
So isn't it interesting that really you started this without any AI overlay or machine learning overlay or computational linguistics, and yet that was what your background was in.
Well, we did have some computational linguistics from the start. So
Got
we had a bunch of things. So the machine translation was done by us. And the reason was the original idea was that on the mobile, instead of having to write, you could just click on a word and replace the word if it was broken.
Okay.
And for that, you need to be able to look at the internals of the machine translation engine. And neither Google gave you that or Microsoft. So we actually trained our own model, statistical machine learning, which I did during my PhD. So the models were ours. And also as we grew, the advantage was we could customize a model for every customer. So basically, if you went to Unbabel, you have like the Microsoft engine for French and the Microsoft engine for German, or like any other company. So we had like a lot of models for customer. And this customization was done because we had our own models. And so the quality of Unbabel for that customer was better than any other provider because it was like completely fine-tuned. We also had the AI on the picking of the person. So with time, we learned that you're better at translating like food. So for instance, I don't know how to translate food because I don't know how to the name of the ingredients. If you ask me to translate football or soccer, I know because I'm a fan. So we could route to specific people. So there was a bunch of AI, even on simple things like anonymization. So you're sending personal information on your email. You don't want people to see it. So we had a module that was an AI-based module that replaced phone numbers, emails, proper names. And that had a lot of research because it's a non-trivial task. So there was like, we started doing research projects with academia at Unbabel after 6 months of existing. So we always use that connection on our advantage.
And it's really interesting place because when LLMs came along, it's all language based, right? And you know, as you apply it to different aspects, that's one thing. But that's what really intrigued me. I was a writer by trade, a storyteller. And I always say the first time I saw ChatGPT was the most joyful day of my life because I had learned language through rote repetition. I had written and written and written, and I think I did build a neural network that allowed me to do two things. One was to deal with the data, the words, the grammar, the syntax, right? And the other was to manage the message, right? And so most human beings I found who I trained over, tried to train, would get so caught up in the data that they could never get to the message, right? And when I saw ChatGPT relieve us of the data, that one neural network, I got really good results from people who had never been quality writers before. And that's what my frustration point was. So I'm fascinated by your background in computational linguistics and all that brings to it. I just find it so ironic that our worlds 5 years ago would have never crossed. And yet today, I sit down with machine learning PhDs, entrepreneurs in AI, computational linguists. All these disciplines have come together in AI, which open up huge opportunities. I don't know if you have an opinion of that, or if I'm crazy, or if...
No, I think large language models, especially like the ChatGPT kind of models, I think that was the first one. They basically they opened so many doors. The models became good enough that the bound stopped being technical, but started being our imagination. And that is super powerful. And I've been working on this for a long time, and I was surprised. And you
were surprised by what when you first saw it?
I was surprised by the ability that he had to reply to questions so there was two things. One of them, so the way I look at large language models is like this almost infinite database of information.
Right.
And they're very good at retrieving information. And we didn't have a system like that before. So that is amazing. The other one is basically it consumes so much text that you kind of learn all these different types of writing. And so you can ask him like, write this as you were this one, and he does. And you look at it, it's like, it's amazingly good. And obviously, like, you can be the one that says, oh, but it's not perfect here or that.
Right.
But honestly, I mean,
it's held to such
amazing.
a higher higher standard than human-generated content. It's crazy.
No, completely. I mean, we had an entire panel yesterday, and different industries of people that were representing was saying, Well, this is actually has an error rate of, let's say, 2%. Humans have 10. Yet people complain more about the AI because you're not tolerant to errors on AI as you are to humans.
Right.
And AI has to learn. So I think these last 2-3 years have been crazy about the pace of innovation.
Right.
And basically, like, we're still to discover the limits of what we can do with these models. Because you start seeing like more and more things. Like if you think about all the agentic workflows, they're still on top of the same model. So it's still like very impressive.
Yeah, and I always tell people, as far as we're still in the beginning, we don't know where it'll go. You know, in my industry, public relations, people are mortified. They think it's just going to ruin the whole industry, that's going to replace everyone. And I always point out Uber, right? Like in 7 years ago, 10 years ago, we had no idea how much pent-up demand there was for personalized transportation. I tell the story in New York City, when you wanted to leave Madison Square Garden or Penn Station, there'd be a line around the terminal. And everyone thought that the supply-demand curve was perfect, right? As much demand for personalized transportation as there were taxis, right? Along comes Uber, and all of a sudden we learn there's all this demand for personalized transportation. And I think we're just at that cusp with communications and language. We don't really realize how much personalized communications we can create with these tools, which will open demand in ways we never imagined.
Yes, completely. And the interesting thing of being working on translation is that at some point translation is a pioneer on all this movement. And the reason is, so first of all, a lot of AI has been done for machine translation. So machine translation dates back to after the Second World War, where people look at what Enigma did for code breaking and thought, well, what if language is just a code? Like I'm mentally thinking in French, but my words are coming out on English because there's some noisy channel, and what I have to do is decode. And it's always kind of like, if you solve translation, you solve the AI. And so it's always been on the forefront. And so we have very good machine translation models for 6 years, 7 years. If you think about the transformer model that led to Gen AI, was a model created for machine translation. So what that means is translators, professional translators, have had to deal with the impact of AI 10 years ago. And so we saw that coming. And at the beginning, people were afraid, okay, they're going to lose jobs. They didn't. There was actually more need for human translation because as the price comes down, there was much more demand for translated content. So companies are like, okay, this is now it compensates to actually translate this. Now, the role changes. So a lot of them, it's very rare for a translator nowadays to translate from scratch. And so some of them were very upset because they saw translation as a craft and they complain it's not a craft anymore. It just changed. So they do a lot of like post-editing, which is correct the machine. A lot of times you just deliver to the end user machine translation because it's good enough, but you still need people creating the data in massive amounts to actually train the machines, or you need people to do linguistic annotation. So there's still a lot of things that they do. I mean, the world is changing, but they didn't necessarily lose jobs, at least over the last 10 years. I'm not saying that it's not going to start becoming smaller in the future, but it takes a long time because the machines need help. And yeah, I'm not a doomer, so I don't see like the...
Yeah, I'm on the positive side too. I just think we can see easily the jobs that a technology will erase. We can never see the jobs that technology will create. Somebody came to me the other day and they said, you know, it's going to ruin writing. And I said, well, look at the internet. Look at the creators that it created. The number of creators, much more than any kind of contributor to the to broadcasting or news reporting. And yeah, traditional news reporting has changed, but it's created all kinds of opportunities on the other side of the ledger for people to create that they never thought they had the ability to do that or build audience or anything like that. So I agree with you 100%. And so tell us about Unbabel, where you are now. You're working with many enterprises across the globe. And what does the future hold?
I mean, so Unbabel is basically growing, but companies still need to work on different languages. At the same time, we launched. So Unbabel is mostly like a platform nowadays to manage translation. So you go to enterprise and data comes from all different sources, from the marketing department, from the financial department, and you have to put it all in one central place. Then you have to manage how you translate each one of them, like what's the terminology, what are the tools, and then basically have to put it back on the place. And this is Unbabel, and we'll keep growing. We also launched on September a new product called Widen.ai. So this is literally like
Say that again?
Widen.ai.
All right.
So that is our state-of-the-art large language model, which is specialized for translation tasks. So for translation, grammar correction, transcreation is actually the best model that you can find for translation.
What was that lift like, creating a foundational model?
It was interesting. So basically, we've been working on AI at Unbabel in publishing like since the beginning. Like I told you, like we're a very research-oriented company. And when ChatGPT came out, we are already using large language models, but not the ones kind of ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is a large language model, and then the part that is instruction tuning that allows you to follow instructions. And we're using the models to do quality estimation. But we're surprised by ChatGPT. And obviously, I got all my investors coming back and say, what is this going to happen? Is this going to kill Unbabel? Is this going to kill the industry? And what we observed was ChatGPT was very good for translation. It was not state of the art. But we believe that large language models will be the future. And the reason was not only were they very good at translation, but you have the ability to pass information to the engine in a declarative way, like with the instructions, that you didn't on the previous model. So you can say, okay, I want this to be translated for this kind of audience with this kind of information. And that was new and super important. And so we said, okay, we have to jump at this boat. And so we kind of broke it on 3 phases. The first one was saying, okay, let's use ChatGPT and let's play with the prompt, with RAG on our platform to take the most out of it. So in translation, you can use RAG in a very interesting way, which you can say, give me the sentences that were translated before and let me use it as an example of what I want to translate now, and the quality increases. So we basically set up all our pipeline to be able to use an LLM. On the second step, we say, okay, now let's train an LLM for translation. So we started from an open source model, and basically we use all our data to do the post-training. And basically with that, like we started beta with Llama, and we got a model called Tor LLM, which is the best model for translation. And this was because of the quality of our data that we got over the years, but also because of the quality estimation algorithm that we have that allows us to decide what has quality and what doesn't have quality. And then the third stage was, do we really need to train our own foundational model? And the question is like, maybe. So we did a research project and we trained Aero LLM, which is a general large language model, which is actually comparative with like Mistral and all the models for all the European languages plus 10. And so basically it was like a strategic decision of the company. We believe we needed to have one to be competitive, and we believe that that was going to be the future, so we had to invest heavily on that, and that's what we did.
Well, that's exciting. I want to thank you for being with us. I could talk to you for hours because I have this basic interest in how people's brains work with regard to language, and you would be the person that could help me find those insights. So I thank you for taking time out of HumanX. I know you have a busy schedule, and we'll be back with another episode here shortly.
This podcast is a production of Gregory FCA. If you enjoyed our discussion today and want to continue exploring the transformative power of AI, please check out more episodes and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.